Every morning, you wake up with two choices: to drift through the day reacting to whatever comes, or to step into it with clarity, control, and purpose. The way you start your morning isn't just routine, it's a declaration of who you are and where you're going. If your first hours are scattered, your day will follow suit, but if they're focused, intentional, and disciplined, you'll find yourself mastering not just your schedule, but your mindset. Today we're diving into 12 simple, powerful actions you can take each morning to set the tone, take control, and own the day before it owns you. When people say, how you start your morning determines how you finish your day, they're not throwing around a cute Instagram quote. They're telling you something that is backed by patterns, psychology, and even basic common sense. The truth is, your first hour is the steering wheel of your entire day. Think about it. What's the very first thing you did this morning? Did you scroll through your phone? Did you hit snooze 3 times? Did you rush out of bed already feeling behind? Those little actions aren't just isolated. They're signals you send to your brain about how today is going to go. Winning the first hour means you decide, before the emails, before the notifications, before the demands of other people, what your mindset, energy, and focus will be. It's not about creating a picture-perfect morning that looks good in a YouTube vlog. It's about creating a foundation that's so steady, the rest of the day has no choice but to fall in line. That first hour can either be the launchpad or the quicksand, and here's the thing, most people don't realize how much control they actually have over it. When you wake up, your brain is in what's called the theta state. It's like wet cement. It's soft, impressionable, and ready to take shape. Whatever you put into it first will harden as the day goes on. If the first thing you feed your mind is stress, chaos, or distraction, you're essentially programming your mental software to run that way until bedtime. But if the first thing you feed it is clarity, gratitude, and intentional focus, you're writing a completely different code for how you'll operate that day. And this is why winning that first hour is so crucial. You are telling yourself, I am the driver today, not the passenger. I've met people who say, but my mornings are too busy, I don't have time for all of that. And I get it, life happens, kids need breakfast, the commute is long, the to-do list is already overflowing. But here's the truth, winning the first hour doesn't mean you need 2 hours of silence, yoga, and a green smoothie. It means you choose 1 or 2 simple, intentional actions that put you in control of your energy and your focus before the world has a chance to steal it. Maybe for you, that means waking up 15 minutes earlier to sit quietly with your coffee and think about your goals. Maybe it's a quick journal entry listing 3 things you're grateful for. Maybe it's a walk outside before the noise of the day sets in. The point isn't perfection, it's priority, because if you don't prioritize your first hour, you'll spend the rest of your day prioritizing everyone else's emergencies. Another thing about winning the first hour, it's not just about mental control, it's about emotional regulation. How many times have you woken up in a good mood, only to have it crushed within minutes because of one email or one social media post? That's because you let the outside world set your emotional tone before you had a chance to secure it yourself. Think of it like locking your front door. You wouldn't leave it wide open at night, letting anyone walk in. But when you start your morning with open access to the chaos of the world, you're doing the same thing with your mind. Now, winning the first hour is a skill. It's something you practice until it becomes second nature. At first, it might feel like a struggle, especially if you've been in a pattern of rushing or reacting. But over time, you start to crave it. You'll notice that you think clearer, you react slower, in a good way. You stop snapping at people because your mind isn't already frayed before 9 a.m. You start making better decisions because you're not running on autopilot. And the craziest thing is, people around you will notice before you do. This one shift changes how you show up at work, how you handle problems, how you talk to people you love. Because when your first hour is intentional, you don't just control your time, you control your state, and your state is everything. That's the lens through which you see the whole day. If the lens is cloudy with stress, you'll miss opportunities and magnify problems. If it's clear with purpose, you'll see solutions faster and handle challenges with more grace. One thing I always tell people is this: your mornings are an investment, not an expense. Some people think, I can't afford the time to slow down in the morning. But in reality, you can't afford not to. Those first 30 to 60 minutes can save you hours of wasted energy later in the day because you'll approach tasks with focus instead of scattered effort. You'll respond to setbacks calmly instead of frantically. You'll make fewer emotional decisions and more intentional ones. That alone can change the trajectory of your week, your month, even your year. And listen, this is not about waking up at 4 a.m. unless you genuinely want to. This is not about following someone else's perfect morning routine down to the minute. This is about understanding that the quality of your morning directly impacts the quality of your life. If your mornings are chaotic, your life will mirror that chaos. If your mornings are intentional, your life will start reflecting that order. The good news is, you can start tomorrow. You don't have to wait for the perfect schedule or the perfect conditions. You just decide, tomorrow, I'm going to win my first hour. Even if all that means is you wake up, take 5 deep breaths, think about what matters most today, and avoid your phone until you've done one thing that fuels your mind. That's a win, and one win leads to another. So when the alarm goes off, don't think of it as just another morning. Think of it as the opening chapter of today's story. You get to decide how that chapter starts. You get to choose whether it's a story of distraction and reactivity or a story of clarity and control. Because if you can win your first hour, you've already won the day. Most people don't realize how much noise they allow into their lives before they've even had a chance to hear their own thoughts. From the moment the alarm goes off, the world starts shouting at you: notifications, messages, headlines, emails, someone's opinion on social media, a reminder about something you forgot yesterday. All of that comes rushing in before you've even sat up in bed. And here's the problem. When you start your day that way, you're not just letting in information, you're letting in other people's priorities, other people's emotions, and other people's chaos before you've even grounded yourself. Silence before stimulation isn't about becoming some kind of monk who sits cross-legged in a quiet room for hours, unless you want to. It's about protecting that fragile space between waking up and stepping into the storm of the day, because in those first few minutes, your mind is like a blank page. You can either fill it intentionally with calm and clarity, or you can let the world scribble all over it with noise and distraction. Think about the last time you opened your phone. As soon as you woke up, you probably saw something, good or bad, that instantly pulled your emotions in a direction. Maybe it was a work email that made you stressed, maybe it was news that made you anxious, maybe it was a friend's post that made you compare your life to theirs. Before you've even gotten out of bed, your mind has been hijacked. You're already reacting. You've lost control of your mental steering wheel before you've even left the driveway. Silence before stimulation is about taking back that steering wheel. It's saying, before the world tells me who to be today, I'm going to decide for myself. Even 10 minutes of quiet can be a game changer, and I know, for some of you, silence feels uncomfortable. You're used to noise, you're used to being entertained or distracted every waking second, but that's exactly why you need it. Silence forces you to sit with your own thoughts. It gives you space to actually hear what's going on inside instead of constantly drowning it out. Here's the thing, when you start your morning in silence, you start to notice things you've been missing. You notice how tense your shoulders are. You notice the thoughts you keep pushing aside because you're too busy. You notice the ideas that surface when your brain finally has space to breathe. This is where clarity is born, not in the middle of a busy street, but in the stillness before the traffic starts. And you don't have to overcomplicate it. Silence can be sitting on the edge of your bed with your eyes closed for a few minutes. It can be sipping coffee on the porch without your phone. It can be a short walk outside listening to nothing but your footsteps. The point is to give yourself a buffer between waking up and letting the outside world in. When you make this a habit, you'll start to see something interesting happen. Your stress threshold goes up. Things that used to instantly frustrate you don't have the same power anymore. That's because you've started your day with your mind anchored, and anchored minds don't drift as easily. You'll notice your thoughts feel sharper, your decisions feel less rushed, and your conversations feel more intentional. That's the ripple effect of silence. It doesn't just change your morning, it changes your entire presence throughout the day. Now some of you might be thinking, but I have kids, I have roommates, my mornings are loud no matter what. I hear you, this isn't about finding perfect conditions, it's about creating space where you can. Maybe it means waking up just a little earlier than everyone else. Maybe it means using noise-canceling headphones and sitting quietly in your own world for a few minutes. Maybe it means taking your silence in the car before walking into work. Silence before stimulation doesn't have to be long, it just has to be intentional. And let's talk about stimulation for a second. We live in a world that rewards constant stimulation. We've trained our brains to expect it. But here's the trap. When you start your day overstimulated, your brain starts craving that same level of noise and chaos all day long. That's why so many people feel distracted and restless by mid-morning. Your brain isn't designed to be on high alert from the second you wake up. It needs that gentle warm-up before the full sprint. Silence is that warm-up. Another powerful thing about silence is that it helps you separate what's urgent from what's important. When you wake up and immediately jump into messages, every ping feels urgent. But when you give yourself space to think before reacting, you start to see clearly. Not everything deserves your attention right now. Some things can wait. Some things don't need a response at all. That's the clarity silence gives you. The ability to choose what's worth your energy instead of letting the day choose for you. And here's something I want you to remember. Silence is not empty. It's full of ideas you haven't heard yet. Full of answers you've been searching for. Full of peace you didn't realize you were missing. But you can't access any of it if you're constantly drowning in noise. The more you practice silence, the more you'll realize it's not about having nothing to do. It's about creating space for the right things to emerge. This is why so many high performers, leaders, and creative thinkers guard their mornings. They know that silence is a weapon in a noisy world. It sharpens their focus, it makes them harder to shake, it allows them to walk into their day on their terms instead of reacting to everyone else's terms. And the best part, you don't need money, special equipment, or a perfect schedule to do it. You just need the discipline to pause before you plug in. So tomorrow, when you wake up, resist the urge to grab your phone. Don't let the first voice you hear be the world's. Let it be your own. Give yourself those few sacred minutes to breathe, to think, to be. You'll be amazed how different the rest of your day feels when it begins in silence, not in chaos. Because when you own the quiet, you own the day. When you wake up in the morning, your mind might be groggy, still tangled in the threads of sleep. But your body, that's the ignition switch for everything else. The way you move in those first minutes isn't just about stretching muscles or shaking off stiffness. It's about starting the entire system that powers your focus, your mood, and your decision making for the rest of the day. You can't expect your mind to fire on all cylinders if your body is still idling in park. Physical activation is the spark that accelerates mental clarity. Think about it like this. Your body is a battery, and overnight, it's been charging in rest mode. When you wake up, you've got energy stored, but it's sitting there unused. If you don't release it through movement, it can turn into sluggishness, brain fog, or that heavy feeling you can't quite shake. But the moment you get moving, whether it's a stretch, a walk, or a quick set of exercises, you send a signal to your brain. We're awake, we're ready, let's go. Blood starts pumping faster, oxygen flows to your brain, and suddenly, the fog lifts. A lot of people think exercise in the morning has to mean an intense gym session or a long run, and because they can't commit to that, they skip it altogether. But this isn't about training for a marathon, unless that's your thing. This is about using movement as a tool to wake yourself up and prime your mind. 5 minutes of deliberate movement can shift your entire mental state. You could do a quick stretch routine by your bed. You could walk around the block. You could do jumping jacks in your living room. The point isn't the type of movement. It's the act of telling your body and brain, we're in gear now. And here's what's fascinating. Movement doesn't just wake you up physically. It actually affects the chemistry of your brain. When you get your heart rate up, your body releases endorphins, those feel-good chemicals that lift your mood and reduce stress. You also increase blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, problem-solving, and focus. That's why people who start their day with physical activity often feel sharper and more positive throughout the day. It's not magic, It's biology. If you've ever had one of those mornings where everything feels off, your mind is sluggish, you're irritable, and you can't focus, it's usually because your body never got the message that it's time to fully wake up. Movement bridges that gap. It's like switching from dial-up internet to high-speed Wi-Fi. You go from slow and clunky to fast and connected in minutes. Another thing movement does in the morning is break the cycle of stress before it even begins. Most people wake up already thinking about everything they have to do, and their stress response kicks in before they've even had breakfast. Physical activity helps burn off that initial stress hormone spike, so instead of starting the day tense and on edge, you start with your body in a calmer, more balanced state. That alone can change how you respond to challenges for the rest of the day, and let's be honest, movement in the morning isn't just about mental benefits. There's something deeply empowering about starting the day with an action that says, "I'm taking care of myself first." It's a small but powerful win before the rest of the world even wakes up. It reminds you that your health and your energy matter, and when you protect those, everything else you do gets better. I've talked to people who have made this shift, and they'll tell you it's addictive in the best way. At first, it feels like an effort. You're tired, you don't feel like moving, and your bed feels too comfortable. But the moment you push through and do it, you feel the difference. You notice you're more alert during meetings. You handle stressful situations with a calmer head. You're less tempted to drag through the day because your energy is steady instead of dipping and spiking. Eventually, you start craving that morning movement because you've experienced firsthand how much worse the day feels without it. And here's the part most people overlook. Your mind and body are not two separate systems operating in isolation. They are deeply connected. When your body moves, your mind follows. When your body is stagnant, your thoughts stagnate. That's why so many breakthroughs, ideas, and solutions come to people while walking, stretching, or exercising. The body's motion sparks the mind's motion. Even if your schedule is packed, you can work this in. You can stretch while your coffee brews. You can do a few push-ups before your shower. You can park a little farther from the office entrance and walk in with intention instead of just shuffling to your desk. Small actions, repeated daily, create massive results over time. The key is to make it a non-negotiable part of your morning, not something you'll try to fit in if you have time. Because if you treat it like an optional extra, life will always give you an excuse to skip it. But when you make it a cornerstone of your morning routine, it becomes the standard, not the exception. And don't underestimate the ripple effect. When you start your day with movement, you naturally make better choices throughout the day. You're more likely to eat well because you've already invested in your health. You're more likely to take breaks and move during work because you've set the tone for an active day. You're more likely to go to bed satisfied because you've built momentum from the very first hour. Your body is the foundation for everything you do. You can have all the mental discipline in the world, but if your physical state is weak, tired, and sluggish, you're building on shaky ground. Movement first thing in the morning stabilizes that foundation. It strengthens not just your muscles, but your mindset. The truth is, you don't have to be a morning person to benefit from this. You just have to be a person who values the power of starting strong. Because when you start strong physically, you give your mind no choice but to follow, and once your mind is in motion, the rest of the day starts falling into place. So tomorrow, before you check your phone, before you sit down with your coffee, before the weight of the day settles in, move. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter for how long, just move, because movement in the morning doesn't just wake up your body. It wakes up the best version of you. What you let into your mind first thing in the morning is going to echo through every corner of your day. Most people underestimate this. They think their thoughts are random, that their mindset just happens based on whatever comes up. But the truth is, what you feed your mind is exactly what it's going to produce. Just like your body can't thrive on junk food, your mind can't operate at its best on mental junk. The quality of your input directly shapes the quality of your output. If the first thing you see when you wake up is a flood of bad news, drama, or negativity, you're already programming your brain to look for more of it. That's not because you want to, but because your brain is wired to confirm what it's been primed to notice. It's called the reticular activating system, and it acts like a filter. What you focus on first becomes the lens through which you view the rest of the day. That's why if you start your morning with chaos, you'll start spotting chaos everywhere. But if you start your morning with something positive, uplifting, and intentional, you'll start spotting opportunities, solutions, and reasons to feel grateful. Intentional input doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending problems don't exist. It means choosing to set your mind on things that strengthen you before you expose yourself to things that drain you. You can't stop every challenge from showing up today, but you can decide how mentally prepared you'll be when it does. That preparation happens in the morning. For some people, this might be reading a chapter from a book that inspires them. For others, it's listening to an uplifting podcast, a piece of scripture, or an audio that fires them up to think bigger. It might be repeating affirmations that remind you who you are and what you're capable of. It might be journaling about your goals so they stay top of mind. The medium doesn't matter, the intention does. You are deliberately putting fuel in the tank before the trip begins, and here's something to understand: your mind is not neutral in the morning. It's like fresh clay, it's going to take the shape of whatever you put into it. If you don't shape it, the world will. And the world will happily fill your head with fear, distraction, and urgency that serves its agenda, not yours. That's why so many people start the day feeling behind before they've even begun. They've consumed input designed to pull their attention away from their own priorities. The people who master their mornings know that their mental diet is just as important as their physical one. You wouldn't start your day with a plate of spoiled food and expect to feel good, so why start it with mental garbage and expect to think clearly? Everything you consume, what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, either builds you up or chips away at you. There is no neutral. Some people hear this and say, "But I don't have time to read or listen to something positive every morning." And that's where I push back, because it's not about time, it's about trade-offs. You have time to scroll for 5 minutes. You have time to read 3 headlines. You have time to check messages. You can swap any one of those for intentional input and completely change your mental state for the next 12 hours. This isn't about being motivated for motivation's sake. It's about wiring your brain to work for you instead of against you. When you put good input in, you're actually training your thought patterns. You're making it more natural to focus on what you can control instead of what you can't. You're making it more likely that when a challenge hits, your first reaction will be to look for solutions instead of reasons to quit. The ripple effect of this is huge. When your input is intentional, your conversations change, the way you talk to people changes. The way you respond under stress changes. It's like a chain reaction. You start the day with something that builds you, and everything you touch after that carries a little bit of that strength. And here's what's really powerful: intentional input compounds. You may not notice a huge difference on the first day, or even the first week. But give it a month, give it 6 months, you'll start realizing you don't get as easily pulled into petty arguments. You're not as quick to spiral into negative thinking. You have more ideas, more creativity, and more patience. That's not luck, that's a mind that's been trained and fueled well over time. Now, I'm not saying you can never consume news or scroll social media. The difference is when and how you do it. If you start with it, it owns you. If you feed yourself first with things that strengthen you, then go to it later, you own it. You approach it with a mind that's already anchored and not as easily shaken. If you want proof of how powerful this is, just run a simple experiment. For the next 7 days, before you check your phone or turn on the TV, spend 5 to 10 minutes feeding your mind something intentional, something that inspires you, challenges you, or reminds you of your purpose. See how you feel compared to a week of starting with random, reactive input. The difference will be obvious, and once you've felt it, you won't want to go back. Because here's the reality: life will throw plenty of negativity your way without you going out and hunting for it. Why volunteer for more than you need? Why start your day by letting someone else's agenda, drama, or fear dictate your emotional state? You can't control everything you hear in a day, but you can control the first thing, and that first thing will shape everything that follows. So tomorrow, instead of asking, "What's going on in the world?" ask, "What's going on in my mind?" Fill it with something worth carrying, because whatever you put in first will echo all day long. And if that echo is powerful enough, It just might drown out all the noise trying to pull you off course. One of the biggest reasons people feel overwhelmed and constantly behind is because they start their day letting urgency dictate everything. The phone rings, the inbox fills, somebody else's emergency lands on their plate, and before they know it, the day is half over and they haven't touched what actually matters. The truth is, if you don't decide your priorities before the day starts, the day will decide them for you, and it usually won't decide in your favor. Planning with precision and acting with purpose isn't about making your life rigid. It's about making sure your time reflects your values, not just your obligations. When you wake up and take a few moments to define your top priorities, you're essentially drawing a map. Without that map, you wander, and wandering might feel busy. It might even feel productive at times, but busyness without direction is just motion without meaning. You can burn through hours and still end up right where you started. But when you begin the day knowing exactly what matters most, every action has a target. You stop reacting to whatever pops up and start moving deliberately toward where you want to go. The key here is to be brutally honest with yourself about what actually moves the needle. A lot of people fill their to-do lists with easy wins, tasks that feel good to check off but don't really advance anything important. That's because tackling small, low-stakes things gives us a quick dopamine hit, and we mistake that feeling for real progress. But progress isn't just about volume, it's about impact. The highest impact tasks are usually the ones that require the most focus and discipline, and those are the ones we tend to push aside until later. The problem is later rarely comes unless we put those tasks at the top from the start. When you plan with precision, you identify the 1 to 3 things that, if accomplished today, will make the biggest difference. That doesn't mean you ignore everything else, but it does mean you guard those priorities with your time and energy like they're gold. Because they are, and here's the reality, you're not going to have unlimited energy all day, mental sharpness fades, distractions multiply, and by the afternoon, willpower is weaker. That's why those high-impact tasks need to be scheduled early, before the chaos of the day can compete for your best attention. Acting with purpose means once you start working on those priorities, you protect that time. No unnecessary notifications, no just a quick check of your phone, no opening 10 tabs to multitask. You give yourself permission to be fully immersed. People underestimate how much faster and better they can work when they're not splitting their attention in a dozen directions. Purposeful action isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters without dilution. One trap that gets in the way is confusing someone else's urgency with your own. The world is full of people who will hand you their priorities and expect you to drop yours. Sometimes it's legitimate, life happens, people need help, but a lot of the time, it's just noise. Planning with precision gives you the clarity to know the difference. When you have your own priorities clearly defined, it's easier to say, I can help you, but not right now, or I need to finish this first. Without that clarity, you default to yes, and every yes you give to someone else's priorities is a no you give to your own. And here's the thing, this isn't just about work, this is about your personal life too. If family time is important, plan for it with the same precision you would a meeting. If taking care of your health matters, schedule it. Too many people leave their most meaningful priorities to chance, hoping the day will leave them room. But days rarely give you room, you have to carve it out. The other side of planning with precision is flexibility. That might sound like a contradiction, but it's not. Planning doesn't mean you lock yourself into an unbreakable schedule. It means you have a clear direction. If something unexpected and truly important comes up, you can adjust. The difference is, when you're operating with a plan, you're adjusting from a place of intention, not drifting aimlessly. You're making choices with awareness instead of reacting blindly. A good morning plan doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as writing down your top 3 priorities, blocking time for them, and identifying what potential distractions you need to avoid. Some people like to plan the night before so they can start the morning already knowing where they're headed. Others prefer to do it fresh in the morning, aligning it with how they feel and what's most pressing that day. Either way, the point is to enter the day with your own blueprint instead of waiting for someone else to hand you theirs. There's also something powerful about putting your plan in writing. It's easy to tell yourself in your head, I'll get to that project first, and then watch yourself answer emails for an hour instead. But when you see your priorities on paper or a screen, they become more concrete. They become commitments instead of vague intentions. And once you have them in front of you, you can measure your day against them. Did you move the needle on what mattered, or did you just spin your wheels? Acting with purpose also means being aware of why you're doing what you're doing. Sometimes we go through the motions without asking if the action is actually serving us. If a task isn't tied to a meaningful goal, it's worth asking why it's on your list at all. Purposeful work feels different. It has a sense of momentum. It might be challenging, even exhausting, but it's satisfying because you know it matters. The best part about building this habit is how much lighter it makes you feel. Instead of ending the day with a vague sense that you were busy but not effective, you end it knowing you made intentional progress. That's the kind of momentum that compounds. Each day of precision and purpose builds on the last, and before you know it, you're not just having productive days, you're building a productive life. Because at the end of the day, the difference between people who move forward and people who stay stuck isn't usually talent, luck, or opportunity, it's how they use their time. Those who plan with precision and act with purpose don't get swept away by every distraction or demand. They steer, they choose, they protect the work that matters most and let go of what doesn't. So tomorrow morning, before you let the world start pulling at you, decide what matters most. Write it down, guard it, and then move on it with full focus, because when your priorities are clear and your actions are intentional, you stop living on accident and start living on purpose. When you open your eyes in the morning, your body might wake up before your mind does. Thoughts are foggy, energy is low, and your focus is scattered. But here's the truth, how you treat your body in those first moments will dictate how well your mind can perform for the rest of the day. Too many people think of the mind and body as separate things, when in reality, they're deeply connected. If your body feels sluggish, tense, or depleted, your mind will follow that lead. That's why moving your body in the morning isn't just about exercise, it's about priming your mental state for clarity, confidence, and control. Now, I'm not talking about spending hours in the gym before the sun comes up, although if that's your thing, more power to you. What I'm talking about is getting your blood flowing, your joints moving, and your breathing steady. It can be a stretch routine, a brisk walk, some yoga, push-ups, or even just dancing to your favorite song in the kitchen while the coffee brews. The point is to signal to your body, we're awake, we're ready, let's go. That signal will ripple into your thoughts, your mood, and your ability to stay present in everything you do. When you move your body first thing, you're doing more than building strength or flexibility. You're telling yourself you matter. You're reinforcing the belief that your health, your energy, and your mental state are worth protecting. And believe me, your mind notices when you do this consistently. Over time, your baseline mood lifts, your patience grows, and your focus sharpens. The days that used to feel heavy start to feel lighter, not because life changed overnight, but because you started managing the one thing you can actually control, your state. Let's be honest, there are days when you won't feel like doing it. You'll tell yourself you're too tired, too busy, or that skipping one morning won't matter. But here's the dangerous thing, when you let those thoughts win, you teach yourself that comfort comes before progress. And progress never comes from comfort. On those days, you don't have to go all out, just do something. 10 jumping jacks, a few deep stretches, step outside and walk to the corner and back. It's not about the size of the movement, it's about keeping the promise to yourself that you will show up. One of the most powerful things about moving in the morning is that it's a keystone habit. It sets off a chain reaction that influences other parts of your day. You might find yourself making better food choices, feeling more alert in your meetings, having more patience with your kids, or handling stress without snapping. That's because movement wakes up the part of your brain responsible for decision making and emotional regulation. You're literally giving yourself a mental upgrade before the day even starts throwing challenges your way. I want you to think about the mornings when you've rushed out the door without doing anything for your body. You're tense, your shoulders are tight, your breathing is shallow. By the time you get where you're going, you're already drained, and you haven't even faced the day's problems yet. Compare that to the mornings when you've taken 10 minutes to stretch, walk, or exercise. Your body feels lighter, your head feels clearer, and you carry yourself differently. People notice, you notice. That's the difference between surviving the day and owning it. And here's something else. Movement in the morning doesn't just give you physical benefits, it gives you a sense of accomplishment before you've even tackled your to-do list. That early win sets a mental tone that says, I'm capable, I'm disciplined, I can handle what's coming. That mindset carries over into your work, your relationships, and the way you talk to yourself. If you skip it, you miss the chance to start the day with that kind of momentum. So make it simple. Put your workout clothes where you can see them the night before. Set a reminder on your phone. Find an activity you actually enjoy so it doesn't feel like punishment. This isn't about perfection or extremes, it's about consistency. Even small movements done daily will compound into massive change over time. The reality is, you don't need to wait until you're motivated to start. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings come and go. Discipline is what you can count on. You don't need to think about whether or not you feel like moving. Just decide that you do it every morning, no matter what. The same way you brush your teeth without debating it, you move your body without negotiation. Because here's the thing, your mind is your greatest tool, but it works best when it's powered by a body that's alive, alert, and ready. When you start your morning by moving, you're not just strengthening muscles, you're strengthening your mindset. You're telling yourself, I am in charge of how this day begins. And that one choice can change everything that follows. It's time to stop waiting for the perfect day to take care of yourself and start making every day the perfect day to do it. So here's the truth. What you do with what you've heard today will decide whether it becomes a turning point or just another moment you forget. Don't wait for the right time. Don't wait until you feel ready. The only time you have control over is right now. Start tomorrow morning, start before the excuses show up, and when your mind whispers you can't, remind it that you already have. Your future is being shaped the second your feet hit the floor, so make the choice today to rise with intention, act with purpose, and live a life that refuses to be average.